Hey guys, Mike here, welcome back to my channel. Subscribe for pop culture analysis and videos each week. Today on the channel I want to talk about something really important to me, and that is the final episode of the Pokemon TV show featuring Ash Ketchum. And I particularly want to focus on the legacy of this character. Even if you haven't engaged with this franchise or this show for a long time, I think it's really important to talk about what this character means and how much of a big deal it is that his story is finally coming to an end. Because of course in Japan recently the final episode of Pokemon featuring Ash Ketchum aired, and I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about this entire thing. Unlike most kids of the 90s, I was there when Pokemon started, when this franchise started and sort of when it all began. And my first exposure, aside from the games, was of course this TV show. I was there when that whole thing began.
It's so cute, it's the best of all!
I watched the first episode of Pokemon air in Australia, and I remember being completely hooked. And I think everything about Ash Ketchum is so appealing to young boys. I was maybe 5 or 6 years old when this all started, and it was such a big moment of my life, and I followed that show for the first few seasons as a kid growing up and watching this constant force of Ash Ketchum, Pikachu, and Pokemon, right? That was this constant figure in my childhood. Alongside the Pokemon franchise and the games and everything around that, Ash Ketchum was just this solid, consistent figure in my life. And again, I think to a lot of 90s kids, this character is so ingrained in their heads, and as time went on, I grew up and I stopped watching this show. You know, I would watch it fleetingly, like say I would turn on the TV as a teenager and it'd be on and be like, oh, I'll watch an episode. And for over 25 years, Ash Ketchum was on TV, being there every week for kids in this fantastic TV show of this amazing franchise, one of the most profitable franchises of all time. And Ash Ketchum was the figurehead of it. What I realized is that not just 90s kids like me see Ash as iconic, because Ash is a character who transcends our own timeline. Ash is a perpetual child, almost like this Peter Pan style character who constantly resets at the end of every season and starts again for a new generation of children. And he's this go-get-em attitude kid, this happy-go-lucky, determined kid that I think particularly a lot of young boys just looked up to and wanted to be like. And Ash was just such a popular character and such a well-known character as well. And I think that transcending of generations and just being iconic, like you could ask me, a nearly 30-year-old man, about Ash Ketchum and I could talk about him, but you could probably also ask a 10-year-old kid today and they would have seen the latest seasons of the show and grown up with Ash in a completely different way to me, but still grown up with Ash Ketchum as a character. And after like 25 years, and after he finally won the Pokemon World Championships, Ash Ketchum has officially been retired. He is no longer going to be the main character or a character in Pokemon, and they're restarting with a brand new canon and a brand new story set in the new Pokemon region and just resetting it completely, which is such a big move for the Pokemon franchise, which is traditionally very conservative in its decision making and just sort of sticks to what it knows works. So this is just such a big move for them. Of course, the episode itself and this entire final 13 episode run of Ash Ketchum's story is huge fan service, particularly for people who grew up watching this show. Ash reunites with Brock and Misty, the original traveling companions from the original series, and as well as that, a bunch of other characters who he's met along the 25-year journey of being 10 years old. And he also brings back a lot of his old Pokemon that he had in the original series and beyond, and you see them for the first time in some of them nearly 1,000 episodes. Like he reunites with Squirtle, Bulbasaur, and Charizard, that original group of Pokemon that he had, and he brings out his Swellow in the last episode, and things like that, which is just such great fan service for people who've been watching this show for such a long time. And here's what I loved most about this final episode. There are so many callbacks to literally the first ever episode of this show from 25 years ago. And you know what I found really weird about it? The fact that my brain instantly remembered them when I haven't seen that since I was 5 years old, but my brain was like, yep, Ash is wearing his pajamas. Those are the same pajamas he wore in the first episode. Like, how does my brain just remember that and go, wow? Like, it felt like when I was watching this, a part of me was like coming home. Like, there was this feeling of home and this feeling of companionship that has been deep inside of me since I was a little boy that just came back. It was kind of emotional. It really felt like this finale was a part of my childhood ending, but at the same time me coming back to it and remembering it. There's the Dodrio outside Pallet Town who do like a wake-up call. That happened in the first episode. Ash nearly leaves the house in his pajamas like he did in that first episode of Pokemon when he was late to Professor Oak's lab, and his mum stops him and dresses him. And he goes to visit Professor Oak, and Professor Oak is now getting a Bulbasaur, Charmander, and Squirtle ready for a new generation of Pokemon trainers. He sees his original rival, Gary Oak, who asks him this question: do you think you're getting close to being a Pokemon Master? And it makes Ash ponder, because his original dream was to be this Pokemon Master. And it is interesting because, 25 years have passed, but in the show, Ash and Gary are still 10 years old, I assume, or maybe 11, I don't know, but it just, all this time has passed and we've seen so much, and we know that these characters have experienced so much, but now they're here again, and they've both grown up so much since that first episode. And I think that's the theme of this episode, is like things coming full circle, but the beauty of a circle is it just starts back again. It never ends. And I think that is what this episode is trying to say with, resetting. Professor Oak is about to give the starter Pokemon out to new Pokemon. He meets Gary again, and then Ash ponders, like, what does it mean for me to be a Pokemon Master? What is, like, my philosophy towards that? Because I've won this championship, I've done all this stuff, I've caught all these Pokemon. What does it actually mean for me to become a Master? And he goes out, and it begins to rain. Another echo to that original first episode, or first two episodes, where there's the attack of the Spearow and Pikachu comes and saves Ash and uses Thunderbolt in the rain. And here it rains again, and we see all of these Spearow, right? And it's just this constant calling back, this full circle. Everything's changed, but nothing has changed. And I think, again, that's what they're trying to say here. And then one of the greatest moments for old school fans, and I remember this, is after, 1,000 episodes of this show, Ash finally reunites with his Pidgeot that he left in the forest 1,000 episodes ago. They finally reunite, and there's been so many memes throughout the year about this Pidgeot that Ash left in the forest. Like, Ash said he'd come back for it, he never came back for it, and they finally reunite, right? Finally, after all this time, and of that original series, I would have loved to see him reunite with the Butterfree. He let go of the Butterfree as well in that really sad episode, but the Pidgeot was such a great episode, and to have that finally come back, and he says to it, do you want to come and travel with me again? And Pidgeot rejoins his party. Now it's Pikachu, Ash, and Pidgeot, that, his original, some of his original Pokemon there, which is just, I don't know. To me, that was this, again, full circle moment. There's no loose ends here. But the magic of it is how this episode ends. He realizes, for me to be a Pokemon Master, I just have to keep doing what I'm doing. I have to go and help Pokemon, help people with Pokemon. That's what being a Pokemon Master is, right? And instead of there being this grand finale, right, which I think we were all maybe expecting, we all want it to be this grand finale moment that ends his journey, this is where his journey ends. Maybe there's an epilogue and he grows up and he's married with kids and ends up with one of the traveling partners that he's had over the years, or something like that, right? Instead of that, that's not how the episode ends at all. The episode simply ends with Ash, Pikachu, and Pidgeot walking into the horizon onto a new adventure, right? Onto something new. And there's a rainbow in the sky as well. Another callback to that moment in the first episode where Ash sees Ho-Oh in the sky. He never did meet Ho-Oh, which I'm disappointed in. I'm not sure if he did actually, but I haven't watched the show. But, the first episode of the show had Ash see hollow in the sky. And it was before the second generation of Pokemon had been released, so no one knew what that Pokemon was. And, you know, it was this big tease. Never got resolved. But then that Rainbow is back. He's back. Rainbow's back. Everything's back. Full circle. He's going on to his next adventure. And instead of it being, now he's finished, he's a master, he's done, that's it. It's like, even though we're saying goodbye to this character, he's still doing everything he's doing, and his adventure continues and goes on. And we don't say goodbye to him in that sense. We say goodbye to him in the sense that his story isn't going to be focused on anymore, but I think it's such a satisfying ending knowing he's not finished doing what he's doing. He's still doing that. He's still doing becoming a Pokemon Master. And I just thought that was such a fitting end because it did feel full circle, and like I said, circles don't end. He's just continuing with what he's doing. We're just not going to see it anymore. And even though I haven't watched the show properly in many, many, many years, it's just like seeing that show and seeing that character and seeing him on TV and seeing it pop up in my life over the past 23 years did feel like there's some part of my childhood that is still alive. And it is sad to me that it's finished, but I think thinking about it philosophically and metaphorically of what they've done here, it really does hold up the spirit of what this franchise is all about and what Ash Ketchum was all about. You know, there's jokes about how he never grows up and he's always 10 years old, and as far as we can see from this episode, he's just going to continue like he always has a bit. And it's done for us, but it's not for him. He's still there. Do I think he'll pop up again anytime soon? Maybe. I think he's such an iconic character, it would be stupid to not continue to implement it in some way. Maybe he pops up in the new series, possibly. Maybe they do movies out of him, I don't know. But I don't think we've seen the end of him. Another thing that I know is an abandoned plotline from the show, but you know, as a kid, one of the biggest things in the world was the mystery of the GS ball in the anime. Never came back, I don't believe. I think it was supposed to contain Celebi or something, but it never came back. Would have loved to see that resolved, but overall, you know, I was expecting that this would be like this huge finale for Ash. And it wasn't in the way that I thought. It was quite a simple kind of finish that showed that he's perpetual. And that Ash as a character and his legacy lives on and continues outside of the show. And I love that. And I love this character. It's such an important figure of my childhood. It's such a nostalgic figure. And it's sad that Ash and Pikachu are gone. But I love the way that they wrapped it up. And I love that he met Pidgeot again. So what did you guys think? What do you think of this character's legacy in the pop culture sphere? And what do you think about where they might head next, and will we see him again? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe. I do a bunch of videos like this, just unpacking nerd culture and pop culture, and I'd love to know your thoughts and have you on board and help grow my channel. I'd love to get to 4,000 subs soon, so hit that subscribe button, check out my videos, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks.